Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to NFL with Kyle. And today we're going to be covering something I'm actually excited about. So, Sean Payton met with the press today following OTAs, and he made some comments about Bo Nix, Zach Wilson, Jared Stidham, and how they're all doing well. And then he went on to talk about Greg Dulcich. And if you're not a Broncos fan, Greg Dulcich is a tight end that we drafted 2 years ago, and he really has struggled with injuries up to this point. We haven't really seen him on the field. Um, and you could say at tight end, we have the worst tight end room in the country. That is how the outside views this tight end room. But today, Sean said something that gave me a little more faith in our tight end room, revolving a player not named Greg Dulcich, somebody that's kind of been buried underneath the roster. And that's kind of the story of his career. And we're going to talk about it. But he is someone that's always been a project. And now he's really taking his game to the next level, where everybody that's watching Broncos OTAs is looking down to see, okay, who is this guy? So we're going to take a look at who he is right now. But first, I want to show you this press conference. I want to show you what Sean had to say. All right, here we go. So first off, we're going to take a look. Greg Dulcich is not
until training camp. Yeah, he's close. Man, he's had all the work done. We're encouraged. I think you'll see him sooner than later, and we want to be smart.
Okay, so we're going to see Greg Dulcich eventually, but they just want to be smart with it given his injury history. Got it.
Do you have some kind of off-season procedure or something?
Well, no, look, there's been trips back and forth relative to checkups, but his rehab has gone well, and it's not going to be we don't see him till training camp. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not going to be that we don't see him until training camp. So Greg Dulcich, I don't know if you guys could hear the question, but the question is he doing okay? Because he has been, going away to these doctor appointments. And Sean's like, no, those are just standard, follow-up appointments. So don't have to be super worried about that. And then he went on, and this is what this whole episode is about. So then he went on to talk about the tight end that's on the roster that maybe isn't getting enough credit. So let's take a look at that, because I think you guys are going to be pretty excited about this. I mean, it is an ex-Saint, I'll say that, but I'm kind of bought into this hype. Sean seems like he's telling the truth here, so here you go.
What's your vision?
Man, I thought he's had a good week. And I said, if you didn't notice, everyone in the media was looking down at the rosters to see who 85 was. And I said, someday soon they're going to know who 85 is.
Someday soon they're going to know who 85 is. And he's talking about all the people at training camp, just constantly looking down, like, who is this guy? So we've heard stuff like that come out of OTAs before, and it actually translates into the season. So let's take a little bit of look at this, because with all the number changes and stuff, I'm going to be honest, like, I myself had to look and see who 85 is. And I like what I found. So if you don't know, 85 is Lucas Kroll. Okay, Lucas Kroll has a really interesting story, interesting way of getting into the NFL. So I wanted to show you guys a little bit of that really quick. So check this out.
Baseball, JUCO baseball.
Lucas Kroll has had quite a journey to get to this point. From high school, he went to Arkansas to play baseball. He transferred to a junior college, was drafted by the San Francisco Giants, then went to Florida to play football. He transferred to the University of Pittsburgh, and now he hopes to be selected in the NFL draft this weekend.
Not a lot of people, if any, have gone D1 baseball, JUCO baseball, drafted baseball, D1 football, drafted football. So I think just alone that story, it's so unique in my journey itself. So it's exciting.
Lucas is a 6'6" tight end with great hands and great speed. He's caught the interest of quite a few NFL teams.
It's been a hectic last month. So I'm getting a lot of interest, a lot of places. And, I'm just really excited to see where that's going to land.
Lucas was part of the 2015 state championship team at Mill Valley. He asked his high school football coach to help him switch sports, and videos were sent out.
That was the first thing we sent out, was just a video of him running a 40. And, that really sparked a lot of interest right away.
And it's that speed that's sparking interest now with NFL teams, including the Chiefs.
They flew me in for the top 30 visit, so that was really good. One thing I like about it is you kind of come in and, they show you your film, and it's nice to see, through their eyes, things I can get better at.
Lucas has been working out here at home, hoping to complete his unusual journey by getting his name called this weekend in the NFL draft.
Okay, so first thing that pops off here is that this guy is a freaking athlete, right? Drafted for baseball, drafted for football. And what's even more, interesting is you heard there that the Kansas City Chiefs flew him in for a top 30 visit during the draft in 2022. So first off, I'm glad the Chiefs don't have this guy, because not just what we're hearing from Sean Payton, but when you take a deeper look at this guy's draft profile, you actually see that this was always kind of the plan for Luke Kroll, or Lucas Kroll, right? This was always the plan where he would kind of get buried on a roster, and then he would continue to work and get better, and then eventually take the position. Okay, so look at what was written. This was written by Bleacher Report. Okay, so this was Luke Kroll's 2022 NFL Draft Scouting Report for Pittsburgh. Okay, 6'6", 251 pounds. Okay, positives: tall, rocked up frame with good arm length. Looks the part. And first off, I'll say, yeah, I see this guy and I'm like, he looks like a beast. Okay. Now we're going to keep going. Good speed. Okay. We heard about that. That was the first thing his high school coach put out there when trying to get national publicity was, hey, look how fast this guy is. This dude's 6'6", 250, but he shouldn't be this fast. He can stretch the field vertically and horizontally. A smooth mover, glides in between and through zones. A decent route runner, clears the bar given his athletic profile, and he flashes the ability to pluck the ball out of the air well outside of his frame. That's where you kind of see that arm length come in. Now, when you look at his negatives, okay, you'll notice that these are all part of the reason that Lucas, when the NFL did, I'll show you actually, the NFL did their own draft profile on Lucas Kroll, and this is what the NFL said about it. Okay, 5.69. Okay, no thanks. 5.69. Okay, what does that mean? Candidate for the bottom of the roster or practice squad. So if you go all the way down to the bottom, you see right here, this is how the grades pan out. Okay, 8.0 is the best you can be. Here he is, candidate for the bottom of roster or practice squad. So this is, the worst grade you can have without having no grade. But there's a lot more to Lucas Kroll that meets the eye. So I'm not going to go over the player buyout because I already showed you the video that he drafted for baseball, played with Kenny Pickett, all that stuff. Okay, so his draft projection is a priority free agent. Kroll is more of a move tight end in a wide tight end's body. It seems he doesn't love the physicality needed at the point of attack, but he does have the tools to get better. And now that is the key wording that I wanted to actually point out in this article, is that even the people that were doing the draft analysts on Lucas Kroll said that he was a project, but he has the tools to get better. Okay, there was enough in his game to make you believe that you could probably teach some of this other stuff, right? He could, after 2-3 years, be a complete football player. All right, we'll keep going. He tends to be a grass-stopping step counter underneath, but flashes his athletic gifts when he's allowed to open up his gate and play in space. Kroll lacks game experience and his hands are a little spotty, but he's competitive, a passionate player with NFL traits that could benefit from a team willing to invest time in coaching into his development. And now who loves these little projects? Sean does. Okay, so Sean got him, the Saints got him. I think that was the year Sean wasn't actually on the team. But the Saints, maybe Sean was a part of that process in some way. I'm not sure about that. I'll look into that. But when you looked at his strengths, okay, we're all kind of understanding these strengths. Now let's look at the weaknesses. Mechanical and straight-legged as a route runner underneath, struggled to uncover against Duke's man coverage. He leans into turns, allowing off coverage to close the passing window. He hasn't learned to his own catch space yet. Catch focus and hand-eye coordination are sketchy. Too much finesse in his run blocking. More nail than hammer when getting into first contact. Okay, so kind of a passively taking that contact instead of being the one initiating it. And he needs to keep feet moving through contact. These weaknesses are all an example of what it is that made Lucas Kroll a project in the first place. Okay, but he comes from an athletic family. Okay, I think actually I have it pulled up here, so let me pull that up too. Okay, this guy comes from an athletic family. He has all of the tools, and now here you go in OTAs, and you got Sean Payton saying that, hey, everybody has noticed Lucas Kroll is taking his game to the next level right now. And this is great news for Broncos country because tight end is the position that we've been worried about. It's the position that is Greg Dulcich going to stay healthy? Adam Trotman, how high do you feel about him? Not that great. So the fact that we have a kind of joker undercover player that is rising to the top, I think that this guy could, make a big splash. We used to have a pretty big fast tight end that didn't love run blocking in Noah Fant, right? To me, this kind of feels like maybe a poor man's Noah Fant, but I don't know because I haven't seen any footage of him in OTAs this year. But from what I'm hearing and what Sean is saying to the press is that everybody has taken notice of Lucas Kroll. Okay, so that in itself is great news. Let's look at some of his games at Pitt. Okay, so let's look at these are some of his highlights. We'll look. Playing with Kenny Pickett. Let's see. Just kind of using his speed to get outside, and then he's got those big hands. He looks difficult to tackle. I know he had some drops, but some of that stuff can just be mental. Let's see. This is a designed play to Lucas Kroll. Double pass. Nothing crazy there, right? Good catch, though. Obviously, that ball wasn't thrown by the quarterback, so not the greatest ball in the world, but Pitt's fired up about it.
And it's been all hit late part of the first and here in the second quarter. A little trickeration. The double.
There's another. He looks like a tight end, right? He looks the part. I don't know. That wasn't really much of a highlight. I guess they're trying to show him as a run blocker here. Contested catch. Big guy. Okay, and then let's see this one. A little bit better quality here.
Pickett over the middle.
Look at that.
Into the end
Good hands. Ball looked like it was a little low.
His first touchdown, I thought it was
I think he did a good job of snagging this
there
ball
with the big paws and
right
pulled it
there.
in.
Snap.
You
And then
talk about
taking that
strong and
contact
focused on that
immediately.
football.
Strong
Goes
hands.
airborne.
Strong hands. So, yeah, this guy has always been a project, and now he's really making his move. Here he is with the Saints.
Will, just a treat.
I think
That's
this
so
is
good.
just
Listen
one
to him
play.
talk to Aaron Andrews.
And not
Texans hoping
playing
they're
time.
cornerstones of this franchise. Here's Hayner. Oh, wide open and a good throw.
Love how he finishes
Lucas
this
Kroll
run right there. Puts the shoulder
racing
down.
into Texans territory.
Yeah, just a nice over route. He's got some good speed. He's a great athlete. You see just a little deep over.
Great speed, great athlete. Not a great run blocker, but he had those couple of years to work on that stuff, and now we're seeing Lucas Kroll. And here's a video. I didn't even see this one, but Saints find another diamond in Lucas Kroll.
Next, we're going to look at Lucas Kroll today, tight end.
I won't show you this because it's somebody else's content. I don't want to get in trouble for that, but you get the idea. So we got Bill in the chat. He goes, I'm a tight end guy. Hope it works out for you. Kroll was the name of an 80s swords and sorcery movie. We drafted someone at that size at tight end too, in Theo Johnson, 6'6", 259, some type of profile too. Oh, same type of profile too. Damn, I didn't know that. I mean, Theo Johnson, I'm pretty sure Theo Johnson was a little bit higher, draft grade, because he was drafted, I think, in the 4th round, I believe. Whereas Lucas Kroll kind of went undrafted, but I really think this guy is gonna surprise a lot of people. He played 2 years of baseball at Jefferson College in Missouri before transitioning to football. And this kind of goes back into what I'm saying about this overall athlete, a crazy athleticism. He's a pitcher. He played football at Florida for 2 seasons before transferring to Pitt. Okay, now sometimes you have multiple things happen. Like, I think this year there was a running back that was being drafted out of Texas, and people were like, who is he? Why don't we know who he is? But then you look at the 2 running backs that were over him were both first rounders. I'm blanking on their name right now. One of them was the highest running back drafted last year. Let me see. Draft 1, 2023. Let's see. Last year we had Anthony Richardson, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, Bijan Robinson. Duh. Okay, so Bijan Robinson. And then this year you had Jonathan, the best. I'm blanking on his name. So you had just basically 2 of the best running backs in the nation back-to-back years. So the running back 3 isn't going to get a ton of exposure, but it doesn't mean he's not good. And you look at him transferring from Florida. Why did he have to transfer to Pitt from Florida? Because he was playing behind Kyle Pitts, right? The greatest tight end prospect maybe of all time. Okay. It's kind of hard to end up in that position when you're just started playing football, right? Late in his high school career, he went up to the high school coach and said, I want to try to play football. Can you make me a football player? And then you go to a college that has the greatest tight end ever. I mean, that's why he had to transfer. Okay. So it's part of his reasoning. If you look at his overall, it's a late blooming tight end prospect, and he has some potential still left to be unlocked. I think that's what this whole video is about, that I think we're there now. Kroll shows the necessary movement skills to be field stretching tight end. Though not a true blazer, Kroll shows good speed both up the seams and across the field, showcasing the ability to weave around defenders through zone while still maintaining his speed. That same mobility shows up when he gets the ball in his hands, though he could stand to be a little meaner when fighting through contact. The one thing I will say is there are certain things in football that you can't teach. You just have to, either you have it or you don't. And some of that is, just having that aggression, being that, having that dog in you, if you will, right? It's hard to teach that to somebody that doesn't have it. But because Kroll picked up football so late, I'm still going to give a pass here to see maybe he did learn that. Maybe he did get a little more nasty. As a route runner, he looked uncomfortable on shorter routes, at times in part because of his limited experience and average start-stop athleticism on intermediate routes. However, he tends to do well and threaten defenders with his speed and transition smoothly in and out of his breaks to generate decent separation. Those separation skills are necessary given Kroll's catching ability right now. Not only does Kroll have random drops from time to time, but he is not yet comfortable hauling in passes in congested areas. He has the length and size for it, but the consistency is not there at times. Once again, this is what they said about him during the draft profile. And it's funny because his grade from Bleacher Report was a 6.6 potential role player. And they thought he would be drafted in the 4th round. Overall ranked at 146, the 9th best tight end, and ended up going undrafted. So this has always been kind of a project going on behind the scenes, and it's just cool to kind of see this manifest because honestly, I didn't even know. I didn't pay much attention. I knew he was on our roster, but I didn't know him. I didn't think when I was talking about the tight end, and I was thinking Greg Dulcich or bust, pretty much. I mean, we have Adam Trotman, not feeling too great about him. So it's funny that sometimes you have these guys that are buried under the roster, but there's this long-term strategy going on behind the scenes, and coaches like Sean Payton actually draft players not just for who they are and what they can contribute today, but also the fact that, hey, maybe I could develop this player. You look at Zach Wilson, right? They asked Sean Payton today about how Zach Wilson, Jared Stidham, and Bo Nix are doing. And he said that he loves that, that there's this competition going. And he said, how do you feel about Zach Wilson so far? And he said, I feel good. And then they said, is there anything that kind of sticks out? And he goes, you can tell that he's, played before. You can tell he has, 60 games of experience or whatever it is. And maybe not that many, but he has a good amount of experience. And that was evident. Sean will take a project, and what he does with them, we'll find out. But he, the Zach Wilson's just kind of a great example of what he did here with Lucas Kroll. And I'll show you one more time what Sean said about Lucas Kroll just moments ago at the podium.
What's your vision?
Man, I thought he's had a good week. And I said, if you didn't notice, everyone in the media was looking down at the rosters to see who 85 was. And I said, someday soon they're going to know who 85 is. He's looking sharp
With Greg.
Someday soon they're going to know who 85 is. And if you guys follow this channel, that day is today. You guys all now know who Lucas Kroll is. And I really do believe that he is going to be a breakout player coming out in maybe even a security blanket for Bo Nix with Cortland Sutton and the contract dispute going on currently. So Cortland Sutton still hasn't reported to training camp. If you guys are not following that, he wants a new contract, and I believe it was just released by his agent what he actually wants. First open day of Broncos OTAs, in addition to Cortland Sutton and John Franklin Myers, DJ Jones wasn't in attendance. Few guys were limited, including tight end Greg Dulcich, and also welcome back Tim Patrick, because Tim Patrick has had a hell of the last 2 years, getting injured in training camp in Russell Wilson's first season. That was a huge loss. And then last year, after spending a whole year getting better, tears another severe ligament, out for another season. But last time we saw Tim Patrick on the field, he was the best receiver on the team in that season. I believe that was the 2021 season. Okay, so getting Tim Patrick back is going to be huge, especially if Cortland Sutton isn't going to be, an option for us this year. And who knows what's going to happen with that. So Cortland Sutton is not going to be attending voluntary OTAs. Okay, that is clear. Now I'm trying to see. I just saw something recently about Cortland Sutton and what he was asking for. This is what Sean Payton said when asked about Cortland Sutton in OTAs today.
Yeah, there isn't any concern. Here's why. I know Cortland well. He's a tremendous worker. You guys know him. A tremendous makeup leader of our team. That'll sort itself out. Yeah,
That'll sort itself out. Now, I don't know what they expect Sean to say in this situation. But Baldy was just on the DNVR podcast yesterday, and he was talking about how important it is that Denver gets Cortland Sutton. And I agree. Cortland Sutton's a great player. I'd love to have him, all of that. But I also said that I think this roster is going to be okay. Now, I wouldn't feel that way if they didn't draft Franklin. And some people are saying that Franklin is wide receiver 3 at best. Okay, but Tim Patrick could be wide receiver 1 since, last time we saw him on the field, he was. And you got Marvin Mims, a guy that made the Pro Bowl as a rookie, who Sean said should have used him more in the offense. Now we lose Jerry Jeudy, and the thinking is, okay, Marvin Mims is taking that spot. But then the Broncos get Josh Reynolds from the Lions, and it's like, oh, okay. So there are options on this roster. Tim Patrick, Franklin, Mims, and also Josh Reynolds. I mean, and then we also have Lil Jordan Humphrey back. And people are like, none of those are wide receiver 1. How do you know? We haven't seen Franklin on the field. We haven't seen Tim Patrick back on the field. You could say that it's a gamble, and I could say sure, but I mean, you're going to form chemistry with somebody. I mean, I really do think that these wide receivers are very capable. So I'm not terribly worried about it. I mean, it's another player, but look, we've torn down this whole team, right? I mean, as soon as Justin Simmons, departed, we kind of all knew what was going to happen. Then they get rid of Jerry Jeudy, and yeah, I hope Cortland Sutton comes back. I've always been a huge fan of Cortland Sutton, but I think at this point, I don't think he makes or breaks, Denver as a playoff team, right? I mean, Denver's either going to, pick up the offense pretty quick with Bo Nix, or they're not. And it's not like Cortland Sutton is going to save the day. Cortland Sutton has had a lot of games where he seems like he disappeared from the field. And then last year, he made these amazing, amazing catches. And I think a lot of people are really high on Cortland Sutton because of those few plays, right? But I would argue it's even better to have somebody that's going to be consistently showing up. I mean, there are weeks last year where Cortland Sutton had like 1 or 2 catches. And if you've had him on your fantasy, if you really want to judge who's a wide receiver 1, think about it through fantasy football terms. Who would you draft as your wide receiver 1 in fantasy football? It would never be Cortland Sutton. So my argument is not that without Cortland Sutton, we don't have a wide receiver 1. It's that this team, and just in general right now, doesn't have a wide receiver 1. But somebody may emerge to, take that position. So we'll just have to see who Bo Nix is going to have chemistry with. And maybe it is possible that Cortland Sutton can be back, but we're going to have to wait and see. There's a lot of stories of people coming out saying that, Cortland Sutton's not going to be back with the Broncos. And if that's true, that does really, really suck. But it's a little early for that. It's a little early to know what's going on with that. So I agree. Sean said it's going to work itself out. He's not wrong. He's either going to show up with a new contract, or he's not going to get a new contract and show up, or he won't get a new contract and he won't show up. And either way, we're going to have, I mean, it's Sean Payton's job to make sure that this team is ready to roll in any of those three different outcomes. What do you want him to say? Oh, yeah, we need him so bad. Like, okay, this isn't Jamar Chase. This isn't Justin Jefferson. This isn't even DK Metcalf, right? This whole idea that Courtland Sutton is just irreplaceable on the Denver Broncos is a little bit weird to me. Saquon Barkley said he feels like a rookie again at Eagles OTAs. And what did Philadelphia running back Saquon Barkley think of his new surroundings? He said the biggest thing that stuck with me is my first 7-on-7 huddle. You see A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and Jalen Hurts. Not a bad group out there. Yeah, no shit. That's not even including the offensive linemen. We're all just coming in, buying in, trying to learn the playbook, learning the system, trying to get better each day. You know, there's a lot of talent before I got here. I feel like I can only add to that. At the same time, you can't look too far. That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of coming in every single day, working with each other, pushing each other. And the Eagles do have a pretty loaded roster. And I was going to bring up this article that just was written about the 10 most complete teams in 2024. And it was written by Eric Oldham. He's the lead draft writer for NFL on X. So let's take a look at this article. And just to get this out of the way early, the Bills and Dolphin fans aren't going to be happy about this, and neither will Cowboys, Rams, or Steelers fans, because none of those teams, all which made the playoffs last year, are going to be featured on this list. In the cases of Buffalo, Miami, Dallas, they had notable offseason departures and or particularly lean positions heading into the season, and that raised big concerns. Teams such as the Steelers or even the Bears might stake a claim to joining these ranks by season's end, but he wasn't ready to include them yet. So you do have teams that almost made the list, right? If you will, they were an honorable mention. But the teams that are the most complete in order, according to this NFL writer, is number 1, the San Francisco 49ers. You can't have a list of the best rosters and not offer up the 49ers. They might not be as strong as at quarterback as some teams on this list are. Brock Purdy showed growth last season, and he has the best play caller in the business. Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, arguably as good of a quartet of playmakers as there are in the NFL. There are a few Niner units that might not be truly special, such as the offensive line, even with Trent Williams, secondary and special teams, but there really isn't a position that you consider a glaring weakness. The defense was a top 10 unit a season ago, and they fired their defensive coordinator. Go figure. But they have Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Travarius Ward, Dre Greenlaw, Javon Hargrave. They have a ton of depth. So they're saying even without an elite quarterback, the Niners have very few questions about their roster. So they come in at number 1. Number 2, you have the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens felt the sting of an offseason that saw them lose depth and experience on both sides of the ball. They lost Patrick Queen. That takes away one emerging playmaker. And they arguably took a small step backwards in talent at receiver. They're also less deep in the backfield, even if the addition of Derrick Henry and the return of Kean Mitchell provide hope, with reigning MVP Lamar Jackson at the peak of his powers, helped by a strong supporting cast of Henry, Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, and others. The offense should keep humming, assuming the offensive line can find enough pieces to man all the positions. Defensively, it remains a good group. Even with the loss of Queen, they have Jadeveon Clowney, Ronald Darby. I didn't know Ronald Darby was viewed that high. I mean, he's a veteran. He was with the Broncos for a while, but I didn't know that he was going to be one of the players mentioned here. Kyle Hamilton, Roquan Smith, understand those ones. Keeping up, Justin Mutabuki was crucial, and they signed him to that long-term contract. He teams with Michael Pierce to form a very stout middle up front, and they also have a good pass rusher unit as well. Of course, the Chiefs come in at number 3. He says the Chiefs are beautifully flawed, by no means perfect, and arguably less talented than several teams on this list, but quite gifted nonetheless. Patrick Mahomes, I mean, do we really have to say it? I mean, greatest quarterback maybe ever. We'll see. But with Rashee Rice's offseason legal troubles, the additions of Marquise Brown and Xavier Worthy help stabilize the group and provide more vertical speed. Travis Kelce, another Hall of Famer, offensive lineman Creed Humphrey, Joe Thuney, Trey Smith, along with solid contributors, and Isaiah Pacheco and Jawan Taylor, if he can stay healthy, and the genius of Andy Reid. So, of course, the Chiefs were going to make this list, but I don't know if they're the most complete team. I just think they made the list because Patrick Mahomes, let's be real. Number 4, the Detroit Lions. When Brad Holmes took over as the general manager, he inherited one of the top 10 worst rosters in the NFL, maybe bottom 5. But Holmes and his staff have made sweeping changes in the 3+ years since then and have turned the Lions into one of the league's more inviolable situations. Jared Goff might not be elite, but last season he proved you can absolutely win with him. I don't know why they say Jared Goff's not elite. I mean, he looks elite. Did you watch the playoff games? He looked elite to me. There aren't truly any weaknesses in Detroit. It's crazy that just in 2021, the Lions had maybe a bottom 5 roster in the NFL. In 3 years, they're the 4th most complete team, and some people could even have them higher. Truly just amazing. You look at this roster: Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Sam Laporta, Jameson Williams. If he takes another leap, they can all benefit from the return of offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. Aiden Hutchinson's already a star. Brian Branch might turn into one soon. They drafted Ennis Rakestraw and Terrion Arnold in the draft. Pretty amazing that they were able to do that. And we'll see if they can get to another NFC championship. My Magic 8 Ball says that they will. Bill said the Chiefs can't be the most complete team, as if 25% of the roster will probably be in jail soon. I don't know what they put in the water at KC, but the guys just can't stay out of trouble. There's something about winning a Super Bowl, you know? Everybody's going out, having a good time, partying. The focus, right? They need to dial it in. But of course, with Mahomes as their quarterback, they're going to dial it in. But you're right. Maybe some of those players are not going to be on the team, depending on if they can't get their crap together. The Philadelphia Eagles come in at number 5. And Bill, you're not going to like this one. The offense looks like an elite unit, especially after the addition of Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts took a step backwards last season, but he has the star traits and the 2 top-tier wide receivers in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, as well as a quality tight end in Dallas Goedert. It's a great group of playmakers, even if there's a drop-off thereafter. Led by Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson, the O-line has the makings of another strong group, though Kelsey's departure does create a giant hole in the middle. They also have Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, wicked duo inside in the pass rush combo of Josh Sweat and Bryce Huff. Looks like a good one. Devin White is a wild card at linebacker. I totally forgot that they pulled that off. But the secondary looks far more stabilized with the return of C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Then they drafted somehow Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. I would say this might even be the second most loaded roster. I would have this team a little bit higher than 5. I don't know how you can put the Chiefs ahead of them. I don't know. Especially after the draft they had this year in the offseason moves that they made. The Bengals come in at 6. They got Mike Gesicki, Zach Moss, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase. T. Higgins requested a trade back in March, but he said in April he expects to play for the Bengals this year. The defense suffered a backslide last season, but part of that is when you lose your star quarterback, you get a lesser quarterback on the field, don't convert as many third downs, your defense is on the field more. So I think some of it is just that. At number 7, you got the Houston Texans. What difference a year makes? CJ Stroud and Will Anderson Jr. both made Rookie of the Year. Unbelievable. After seeing how advanced Stroud was in year one, the Texans chose to go all in, getting Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs. I forgot Joe Mixon was traded to the Texans, probably because Stephon Diggs kind of stole the spotlight. Don't forget they signed Daniel Hunter from Minnesota, Azeez Al-Shar, and Danico Autry, a slew of veteran defensive backs on defense, combining them with a strong group of first, second, and third-year talent. Gives Houston a roster several other clubs would be envious of. Stroud has a strong group of pass catchers. This might be the best wide receiver group in the country. Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, 1, 2, and 3. We saw Nico Collins. He looks like a wide receiver 1. Tank Dell, I think, was the wide receiver 1 until he broke his leg. So what do you have now? 3 wide receiver 1s? Like, they also got Dalton Schultz to return. The pass rush of Anderson and Hunter will be a big part of their defense. The group has some questions at defensive tackle. They could use more plays from its linebacker unit, but they're going to keep building on this roster. You know, this is the Detroit Lions, right? They're going to keep building this whole transition. D'Amico Ryan, CJ Stroud. I mean, get used to the Texans being good for a very long time. And that goes for the Packers too, with Jordan Love emerging after midseason last year to becoming a star down the stretch. The Packers made 2 rare free agent plunges, one on each side of the ball. The one where they got Josh Jacobs out of Raiders. I'm not mad about not having to face him twice here as a Broncos fan. Love has arguably the best young receiver core in the NFL, even if there's not a clear-cut number 1 option right now. Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Datavion Wicks, and others. Green Bay's teaming with second and third year talent. The same holds true at tight end with Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft. The offensive line still has some roles to sort out, but the run game could be strong regardless. Given the additions of 2-time Pro Bowler Josh Jacobs and third rounder Marshawn Lloyd, the additions of safety Xavier McKinney, who Bill knows very well coming from the Giants, made a good defense even better. The Packers allowed some big plays, big pass plays, and didn't force enough turnovers last season, but they're pretty stout up front. More promise at linebacker and enough cornerback talent outside of Jair Alexander to solidify that position. The nucleus of Alexander, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, Preston Smith, Quay Walker, Luke Van Ness, their first rounder last year, and others could make this a top 12 unit by the season's end. And when you have a quarterback as good as Jordan Love closed the season out last year, you don't really need to have a top 5 defense. You can go to the Super Bowl with the top 12 defense, right? If you're that good, on offense. So the Packers making this list at number 8 really shows like they're a very balanced team. I mean, last year at this time, they were considered like a 25th, team in power rankings. No one knew who Jordan Love was going to be. What a year. What a difference a year makes, right? And then the Cleveland Browns coming in at number 9. Running back Nick Chubb. Man, that guy's a beast. And Jack Collins. They're still working their way back from major knee injuries. And the Browns' top 3 tackles were all hurt last year. But with a strong interior and decent depth, Cleveland's O-line can return to form. Deshaun Watson and the injured players give this offense higher variance, but it looks to be a better group on paper. Cleveland had arguably the best defense in the NFL last season, and it won't be surprising if that's the case again. Reigning Defensive Player of the Year Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith are a top rush duo, and Dalvin Tomlinson has more help inside with the additions of Quentin Jefferson and rookie Michael Hall Jr. Jordan Hicks. Looks like a solid acquisition to line up next to Jeremiah Cormoa at linebacker. The secondary boasts perhaps the NFL's best quarterback trio in Denzel Ward, Martin Emerson Jr., and Greg Newsome, along with an unremarkable but fairly deep group of safeties. And this is another team where the defense is so elite that you don't need the offense to do that much, right? There were plenty of games last year after Deshaun Watson got hurt where the Browns continued to win, only scoring 20 points. And that's because of how good the defense is. If you're going to have a healthy Deshaun Watson this year, Amari Cooper, you bring in Jerry Jeudy, who arrived via trade from Denver. That remains a question of sorts, but he adds, a weaponry to an offense that hasn't been as effective as Cleveland's defense. Watch out for the Browns this year. They were good last year. They're healthier, and they're a better roster this year. And then at number 10, this one's coming in a little low for me, but you got the New York Jets. I debated a host of teams for the final spot here, including the Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins, Cowboys, and up-and-coming teams such as the Bears. But once I looked closer, it became obvious to me that the Jets have enough to be considered a top 10 roster, all things considered, at least for this season. Aaron Rodgers' injury left the passing game in shambles. It accounted for 11 touchdowns and 15 picks and only 5.6 yards per attempt. But even so, the Jets went 7-10, losing 3 one-score games at home. And I believe the roster, irrespective of Rodgers, is simply stronger than it was a year ago. Offensively, the Jets have a true number one receiver in Garrett Wilson, a stacked backfield led by Breece Hall, and an offensive line deep enough where first-round offensive tackle Olufa Shunu might not be required to start immediately thanks to the additions of Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses. Tight end remains average, and the receiving depth could be tested if Mike Williams has injury issues, or when Mike Williams has injury issues, or rookie Malachi Corley isn't ready. But for the most part, New York is in far better shape on this side of the ball. Bryce Huff, John Franklin Myers departed on defense. Of course, John Franklin Myers is with the Broncos now. But the additions of Hassan Reddick and Javon Kinlaw could help offset those losses. The rest of the unit continues to look strong for a group that ranked top 5 in several categories and allowed fewer points than the much Ballywood Browns, anchored by Quinnen Williams and C.J. Mosley in the middle of, and Sauce Gardner on the back end. Don't forget about him. There might be questions about head coach Robert Saleh and offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett, especially offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett. But the Jets' talent is stronger than many are ready to admit. If Aaron Rodgers is healthy, this is a playoff contender. And I totally agree with this. This Jets team is really, really good. I mean, that's what was drawing Aaron Rodgers to New York in the first place. Not just that Brett Favre went there. People like to joke around about that. But the fact that this team is actually in really good shape to go the distance. And that's why when Aaron Rodgers got there, the hype was what it was last year. That's why you had helicopters flying over the stadium and Hard Knocks taking place. And now you got this roster is even better. And Rodgers is coming back from an injury, a rare injury. You know, people are saying if Rodgers can stay healthy, I understand he's a little bit older, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Rodgers is a guy that dealt with injuries his whole career. He's not. And honestly, if that offensive line that did upgrade can protect him, I think I like his chances of staying healthy and making the Jets one of the best teams in the NFL. So this is the top 10 most complete teams for the 2024 season. Let me know which ones you guys don't agree with, which ones you do agree with. The 49ers schedule in 2024 is pretty tough. I think they're going to start 1-5, right? They're probably going to beat the Jets week 1, the 49ers, then they play the Vikings and the Rams, and then the Patriots, right? I mean, not an easy, what? You got 2 hard, 2 easy. The 49ers are going to be just fine. I'm looking at their schedule. Maybe they lose, week 7 to the Chiefs, maybe. That game is at home, so maybe not. But I look at their schedule and I see, okay, they got a couple tough games. They play the Rams twice, divisional game. They'll probably beat the Seahawks twice. They'll probably beat the Cardinals twice. So yeah, I think the 49ers, honestly, what's reasonable to believe is probably a, 12-5 season. Something like that. Definitely fighting for a number 1 seed. And we're going to be going through, each team and looking at, okay, what makes their schedule really difficult with the strength of schedule that I've been working on. But I actually got to get ready to go to the gym. I got a 4:30 class. But thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know what you guys think about the beginning stuff with Lucas Kroll in the comments below. Do you think Lucas Kroll is going to emerge? Sean Payton really put him out there. So said everyone is going to know who Lucas Kroll is. He told that to Lucas Kroll, not the media. He was just telling the media that he told that to Lucas Kroll. So I think when you talk to a player like that, it can do a lot for building their confidence and getting them, excited to play hard for you. And maybe if you're in a fantasy football league and you're at the way end of your draft and you're just looking to stack a bench player with breakout potential, maybe Lucas Kroll is that guy for you. Let me know what you guys think. Bill said have a good one. You guys have a good one too. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys later today.